Blackbeard's third devil fruit will be the Taco Taco no Mi model Kraken. Due to recent developments in the story and the partial dismissal of the Cerberus devil fruit as being Blackbeard's third fruit, I think this all but confirms a previous theory I had about 4 years ago during Wano when I was first starting out on Instagram as a One Piece creator. Blackbeard having a third fruit has been a common theory in One Piece due to its correlation with the number 3 and the fact that he's able to have multiple devil fruits, leading to many speculations about what his fruit could be. Some saying the Ope Ope no Mi, some saying the Fish fruit model Seiryu, and some saying the Cerberus fruit. Just a disclaimer, there will be spoilers for the manga, so you have been warned. An added disclaimer, this video was made before 1156 without any spoiler influence. The Cerberus fruit could still be likely depending on if Blackbeard comes into conflict with Shamrock, as there are actually some hints / a theory to be made about them having a battle in the future, which I might get into in another video. But the Cerberus fruit being showcased in the way it has makes me think Blackbeard's third fruit won't be that one, as something as grand as his third ability, I feel anyway, should be saved for a much bigger reveal. This theory has a few moving parts to it beyond just Blackbeard's third fruit, but in this video I'll go over Blackbeard and Rox's connection to Davy Jones, who the man marked by flames could be, a future final battle location with Luffy, and a possible big hint that was dropped all the way back in Fishman Island. Why exactly the Kraken devil fruit? Well, my initial reasoning for it was actually a bit more superficial than anything hinted at, but it has to do with the fact that Surame was very underwhelming for what the legend of the Kraken entails for piracy. The Kraken is one of the greatest seafaring myths in history, up there with the likes of Moby Dick and mermaids, both of which have great importance in the One Piece world and story through Poseidon and Laboon. Surame being the main Kraken we get in the story is highly underwhelming for what it should be, which is why I believe that Oda left us a little hint that the Kraken will come back in the future. This hint was dropped in chapter 636, which is when Surame's brother was revealed to be held captive at the North Pole. Now this was basically a throwaway moment to show Surame becoming an ally of Luffy. What I think is more important than even that is the promise that Luffy made to Surame after finding out he had a brother. That promise being that he would protect not only Surame, but Surame's brother as well. Oda isn't the kind of author that forgets things like this, and small throwaway moments in the past usually end up becoming major in the future. Like the bracelet Luffy found being the key to John's treasure and him giving it to Buggy being the whole reason he was able to start up his delivery service and now run his operations as an emperor. Small panels in One Piece are some of the most important ones, and I think this one is going to be very important in the near future. Luffy promising to protect Surame's brother and him being in the North Pole is significant because of the importance it will give to Luffy if he ever gets attacked, and also because the North Pole is a significant location as well. The North and South Pole are kind of connected to Shanks and Buggy, as there was an argument they had about which is colder, Buggy being the one who chose the North Pole. But that's not really important to the theory, just a little side note I thought I'd like to add. The North Pole is stated to be a massive ice with no land, which I think is going to be very important concerning who exactly Surame's brother is. I don't think Surame's brother will simply be another natural born Kraken, but instead be somebody who ate the Kraken fruit because of what Hordy says about them. Hordy says that they fetch a nice price, which would mean that Krakens are extremely rare, probably due to them being hunted down or coming into conflict with sailors over history. This I think would be either because the world government placed a bounty on the user of the Kraken fruit previously, or because they were trying to hunt down the user of the fruit and kept failing to get them, thus leading to the near extinction for the Kraken species. The reason that they kept hunting down the Krakens and the price for them being high to this day, I believe, would be that either the previous or current user of the Kraken fruit is Davy Jones. Davy Jones is a figure in One Piece that is recently coming back into the story after being introduced in the Long Ring Longland arc. In this arc, Robin speaks about Davy Jones being someone who was cursed by a demon to live on the sea floor. This belief more than likely being a rumor spread from him eating a devil fruit that allows him to breathe underwater but causes him to either have limited mobility due to it, or him simply hiding and staying underwater because he was being hunted down. Davy Jones is so far the only pirate of note from the ancient past that is still being name dropped to this day other than Joy Boy. No other pirate has been getting name dropped as much as Davy Jones for how old his legend is and his influence spanning the entire world, with the Davy bag being a showing of honor as pirates as well as the games being sworn on his name, almost the way you'd swear on a god or a Bible. Davy Jones was almost certainly an adversary to the world government, with many people assuming he's actually Joy Boy, which I don't really believe myself, as Jones is described as taking whatever he wants from the sea, as well as taking any treasure that falls to the seafloor, which doesn't sound like something Luffy or Roger would do, and with them being portrayed as possibly Joy Boy and actually Joy Boy, I think that Jones should be similar to them if he is Joy Boy. Not only that, but Davy Jones is the one who inspired Rox, as he calls himself a Davy Jonesian pirate, and I don't think becoming king of the world is something Joy Boy would do either. But what does any of that have to do with the Kraken fruit? Well, as I said earlier, it would explain the high price for a Kraken, seeing as everyone hunting for Jones would kill a Kraken thinking it was him. It would also explain Jones's curse of being at the bottom of the sea and being cursed by a demon, i.e. a devil fruit. It would give Blackbeard a reason to want the devil fruit as well. I don't think it's a coincidence that Surame's brother is in the North Pole either, which is said to be completely ice, and that Jones was cursed to live in the sea. Jones being somewhat of a hoarder, as we hear from Robin, and taking any treasure that falls to the seafloor also makes me think he'd have the Kraken fruit even more due to the existence of the jewel ice sheet that Don Chinjiao found. It was never explained why that massive pile of treasure was under the ice, and the fact that the ice was already frozen over again by the time Chinjao came back after losing to Garp makes me think somebody could have possibly had a hand in it freezing back over. The Kraken fruit would definitely have more abilities than just becoming a big octopus, as it would be a mythical zone, and one of the abilities of the fruit might be gaining a connection to the underworld due to how eerie and demonic Davy Jones' story seems to be. Krakens are said to crush ships and drag them to the seafloor, which would tie to Davy Jones perfectly, as he would take what he wants from the sea, which are the sailors, by crushing them and then dragging them to the seafloor to get the treasure. Davy Jones and Vanderdecken are both legendary pirates from ancient times, and both have very eerie connections with being at the bottom of the sea. I think that in Jones's case, it could lead to the Kraken fruit being something that connects to the chill of the underworld, just like Brook can, as Brook is also an old pirate from very old times, as he was an active pirate before rocks even started sailing, putting him in an era we haven't seen yet. Brook is also connected to Laboon, which is one of the historic sailing myths in the real world that Oda transferred to One Piece. Same with Vanderdecken and Poseidon. I don't think Oda made all the old ghost pirates connect to old pirate myths for no reason, and I think Jones being the third one should be connected to a Kraken fruit in some way. Brook and Vanderdecken's connections are actually very important to the endgame of the story, as Brook seeing Laboon again would signify Luffy coming from the other side of the Grand Line and being the Pirate King, and Vanderdecken wanting Poseidon since it's one of the ancient weapons. Davy Jones being connected to the Kraken would have to go much deeper than it just being Surmei or being a literal Kraken, and in my opinion has to have some connection with a Kraken Devil Fruit. So just to summarize before I move on, as I might have been rambling at certain points, Surmei's brother being in the North Pole will come back later in the story as someone who can use the Kraken Devil Fruit, either being a descendant of Davy Jones, a Davy Jonesian pirate who ate the fruit and befriended Surmei, or Davy Jones himself. Just as a side note, if Davy Jones himself ate the Devil Fruit and is still around to this day, then that would obviously mean he possesses some form of immortality, which is a whole other video I want to make about characters in One Piece that may be immortal. The use of the Kraken fruit's curse to live at the bottom of the sea more than likely is just them choosing to stay there, as it's easier for them to hide due to Krakens being hunted by the government, as Davy Jones had the fruit previously and he's somebody that they wanted gone. The reason they wanted him gone being that he opposed them and wanted to rule the world, which is why he inspired Rocks to do so as well. Davy Jones being a hoarder that takes whatever he wants from the sea, uses or used the ability to hoard massive treasures under the sea and would freeze them over with ice to protect them. One of these hoards resulting in the jewel ice sheet which Chinjao found and opened, but came back to it being frozen over possibly due to the Kraken's ability. The North Pole also possibly being a massive pile of treasure that is frozen over as it's stated to be entirely ice. The reason that whoever the Kraken user is can freeze such massive chunks of ice has to do with the underworld due to the eerie connection old and historic pirates have, such as Brook and Vanderdecken, one being able to access the chill of the underworld and one thought to be a ghost pirate by most of the world. The Kraken fruit being the symbol of a watery grave would have an underworld undertone, as the user can literally drag ships down to Davy Jones' locker, the final resting place of drowned sailors. So now that I've established where the fruit could be, its connection to Davy Jones, and what it could possibly do, it's time to go over the most important parts, which is why Blackbeard would want it and who exactly it is that has it right now. Blackbeard being stated to have a hobby studying history would more than likely have learned this information about Davy Jones through being interested in his father, since his father was interested in Jones as well. I believe that through researching about Jones, Blackbeard would learn he has a hidden treasure in the North Pole that is absolutely massive. Rocks previously wanted to use the gold deposits on Hachinosu to fund his campaign to become king of the world, but Blackbeard being his successor I believe will go even bigger. The treasure Davy Jones amassed would be over multiple centuries if he is still alive, and if the jewel ice sheet is any indicator, it would be a massive, almost continent-sized mound of treasure, especially if that's the main mound he hoards to. I don't believe it would be as easy to find as the jewel ice sheet however, as then Hordy would have literally found the mother lode. I think the treasure is something only accessible to the user of the Devil Fruit, which would spur Blackbeard on to getting it. Blackbeard in all honesty doesn't need a third Devil Fruit as far as strength goes. He has the ability to destroy the world and negate any Devil Fruit, so I believe that if he was gonna get a third ability, it would be because the fruit furthers his goal in a massive way, instead of him just being that much more powerful. The treasure in the North Pole could also be much more than simply just a boatload of treasure. That tying into who I think has the fruit right now. As with most things in One Piece, great treasure is never just gold and jewels, and the North Pole treasure being similar could also contain a whole lot of history and information, maybe even a weapon that Blackbeard could use to take down the world government once and for all. Blackbeard might not simply be hunting down the fruit, but also its user, who I believe to be the man marked by flames. The power Krakens possess in mythology is the ability to create whirlpools and strong currents, which is something we see in the showing of the character, as well as Laffy's mention of him possibly having a fruit power being highlighted. Blackbeard would want the Devil Fruit because he knows there's more to Jones's treasure than just gold, and whatever it is, he'd do anything to get it. Whatever Jones's treasure is might be something that Rux probably thought was on God Valley that didn't end up being there, or something that was previously on God Valley that got sent to the bottom of the sea if the island was destroyed. Blackbeard certainly has a huge motive for getting the fruit, and if it does possess the ability to access the underworld in some way, Blackbeard's reason for getting it may be threefold. Teach is a very methodical man. He doesn't do things because they seem obvious. I have a feeling there's a reason he called the Gura specifically, and it might be to use in conjunction with the Yami Yami and the Kraken fruit. It could be that once he gets the fruit, there is something he'll be able to do with them, like possibly open up the gates of the underworld to do something that will allow him to ask those who have died for information or assistance. We know Moria can access the dead through shadows, so his darkness fruit might be able to do something similar if he has the right combination. The reason the Cerberus fruit theory was so popular was because it gave Blackbeard more ties to the underworld, and I believe it would be the same for the Kraken fruit. I'm just not exactly sure on what it would be. So this is just a re-recording. The audio got cut for that section, so I'm just letting you guys know I'm talking about Hordy capturing the man marked by flames here, and the reason why I say I don't think it's Davy Jones is going on later into the video. Sorry about that. Hope this helps. In all honesty, I don't think it's Davy Jones himself that's the man marked by flames. I think it's probably gonna be another Davy Jonesian pirate that's just doing what they think Jones would do in hoarding treasure, and is probably acting in a way more similar to a griffin than a kraken. Oda could easily find a reason for it, like Hordy simply lying because he knows Surmei has a connection with the Kraken. He actually doesn't even have any way to verify that it is his brother, which doesn't hurt the theory. Hordy lying is also not out of the realm of possibility, because if Kaido can get captured 7 times, I'm sure this guy can get captured once on accident and then escape. Hordy lying to Surmei because he can't verify so he can exploit him later is completely in character, and Oda could probably come up with a much better explanation anyway, so don't let that one thing ruin the theory, because it's minor in comparison what actually could disprove it. Surmei's brother being attacked would definitely not be the only reason Luffy attacks Blackbeard, but I think it would be the trigger to Luffy's response to finally putting Blackbeard down, because it would give him a general location of where he is, especially if he goes for the man marked by flames. The final pirate battle in One Piece should be a battle at sea in my opinion, and Krakens versus ships is likely the most iconic sea monster battle a pirate could have. Luffy failing to keep his promise to Surmei and the other reason he would want to fight Blackbeard, which is also another video I want to make, would end up leading to a showdown at the North Pole where there is enough ice for the Straw Hats to fight on solid ground, but enough water around for them to have a fight at sea, which would be an epic final battle, especially with Aokiji on Blackbeard's crew. It would give the Straw Hats a much harder time to fight while also making it easy for them to have definitive victories, seeing as all the Blackbeard pirates are Devil Fruit users, so he can either beat them outright or find ways to drown them. And since Blackbeard is the only one who wouldn't be able to drown, the Straw Hats would have to come together to stop him if Luffy isn't able to, almost creating a Roger vs. Rocks parallel where he has to be defeated by multiple figures. I know this theory probably seems all over the place. This is definitely way more reasoning and parts than I put into it when I first created it, but I hope it was cohesive enough for you all to understand. This is the one theory I've made in One Piece that I think actually has a shot of happening, and after seeing Shamrock use the Cerberus fruit and Davy Jones and Rocks being connected to Blackbeard, I had to get this video out ASAP. This is me buying Bitcoin in 2009 basically before it hits the moon, so let me know if this theory is even worth hopping on. Will Blackbeard even get a third Devil Fruit, or am I just yapping about nothing? If you stay to the end of the video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for the 100 subscribers. If I hit 100 by the time this video comes out, your support motivates me to keep trying to put better and better content out, so let's take this One Piece community by storm. Peace.